You know, when we gather together, we are these beautiful, banished believers. But we are these people because of our behavior. As an immigrant, I can tell you that I have first-hand experience with the physical ramifications of being an immigrant. The moment you open your mouth, people realize that you're a stranger. Your vocabulary is different. The way you spell words is different, and yes, your accent is different as well. Yesterday, after we had finished working on at the building, Deacon picked me up. She'd been to Walmart, and she said, "I've picked up your PT shorts." Anybody know what that means? We did a course in high school and in junior school. All of us had the same course, and it was called PT, and we called it physical torture. It's what you call physical education, yeah, or PE. And so it actually means physical training. And, you would take a double take. Or how about my brother wrapped up some steak for me yesterday to cook out on a grill, and he used silver paper. I suppose you know what I mean when I say that, right? Well, why don't we just call it silver paper? Right? That's what it is. It's silver paper. But there's so many things that are different. The way you drive. I learned to drive a little motorbike, and then a bigger motorbike, and then a car, and then an extra heavy-duty truck. And each one, there was a learner's license and a license. And so 8 different times, I had to learn to drive incorrectly, at least according to you. Every time I get into the car, I really have to think of what I'm doing. I can't just get in the car and drive. It's different. One of the most interesting ones that shows me that I'm an exile and a sojourner is when I'm in America going downstairs. Now, if I have to go down these stairs here, these are stairs that are based on the international way you build stairs. They're perfect. You see, your foot fits completely on this stair, and it's only about 4 inches high. And that's the way the whole world builds stairs. Not in America. Not if you're going upstairs or downstairs in your house. So every single person that's come to my house for more than 2 weeks or maybe even a week has fallen down the stairs. Because what you do to walk down the stairs in this country is called the Donald Duck walk. You do this. You go down the stairs like this, and you'll be okay. But if you go down normal like John Wayne, like this, you're going to fall. Try going down your stairs in your house like John Wayne. It just doesn't work. So a couple of weeks ago, Van, my brother-in-law who visited us here, he's an intelligent man. He walked down the stairs and I heard him fall. And so guess what he did? He engaged his brain and started walking again, completely thinking about what he's doing. Fell again because he was doing the John Wayne walk. You just don't do it. Well, when we come into this country, when we come into this spiritual country, when we come in as sojourners and exiles, we learn to behave different. And for the world, they might not like it. But we have to learn to live differently. Our private lives needs to be different. Our public life needs to be different. And our church life must be different. Because we are banished believers. But we are beautiful banished believers. And our behavior is so crucial. So open your Bibles, if you would, to 1 Peter chapter 2. And let's look together at what this behavior should look like from verse 11. Now, as you're turning to verse 11, let me tell you this. I'll be reading mostly from the ESV, and you'll see why pretty soon. The Sense translation of the NIV will throw you a little bit off when it comes to the way to read this text. But also, I want you to look at verses 9 and 10. To get the context. We'll back it up to verse 1 eventually, but just look at verses 9 and 10 and see who he's speaking to. He's speaking to people who are a chosen race. So you might think you're an American, you might think that you are born in some other country originally, but what you actually are is you are God's chosen people. You have a different citizenship. You are a royal priesthood. That means every single one of you is not only a saint, as you sit here, but you are a priest. You are a royal priesthood. You are also a holy nation. You don't behave like the world. You don't go to the cesspools of the world. You don't put all over Facebook how you are living like pigs in a pigsty. You are different. It comes out. I mean, people can see it. You are a people of His own possession. Folks, that is so important. Not that you try to live like this, but that God has made you like this because He changed you from the inside. You didn't even see the change happening. It happens very gradually, but it's a very determined change. That you may proclaim the excellencies of Him who called you out of darkness into this marvelous light. You're not taken the moment you are baptized. You are here for a reason, that you can tell the world about this. While you keep your finger open here, you may want to also look at Hosea chapter 1, verses 6 and 9. In Hosea, God says to the prophet, his prophet, I want you to go marry the notorious prostitute of this area. I want you to go take for yourself a wife out of whoredom. Go marry Gomer. Everybody knew who Gomer was. She wasn't a very nice lady. But by verse 6, they have a child. And the child is not called Rahama, which would be mercy, a girl name. It's called Lo Rahama, which means not mercy. 3 years later, in verse 9, they have a son. I don't want you to call him Ami. Am meaning people, and the I at the end meaning mine. So not my people, Lo Ami. I will not have compassion on you. I will not have mercy on you, and you will not be my people. And that is the message that God gave Israel, His chosen people, at that point. And now, turn back to 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 10, and see how God reverses this before we get into today's lesson. Once you are not a people, once you are Lo Ami, once you are you were not a people, but now you are God's people. You are God's people. And then he says, once you were Lo Rahami, once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. Isn't that incredible? Isn't that wonderful to know that that's who we are? These are beautiful, banished believers who are going to behave differently. And the text will show us this very clearly. Let's start with verse 11 with our private behavior. How should our private behavior be different? Beloved, I urge you. Now, those of you who have the NIV, you already are off track because it says friend. The word friend in Greek is philos. It's not. It's agapao. It is my beloved. And it's based on what we've just read. You are God's beloved. You are His chosen people that He's bestowed mercy upon. I urge you. I beg you. I plead with you. Live as sojourners and exiles. Now, a sojourner is somebody who is in this country, is American in this country, but they have foreign number plates. They have California number plates riding around in Kentucky. They just drive differently. Or like when we drive to Kentucky, to Ohio, they just give us a lot of way, a very big breach, because they know we drive very different. We don't stop at stop signs and things like that. We got called the rolling stop sign. If you stop at a stop sign here, somebody's liable to drive into the back of you. We're just different, right? And so we are sojourners, but we are also exiles. Now, exile is if you are doing mission work in Turkey right now. You would be an exile. If they figure out what you're doing, you'd be in prison immediately. And so we are these people. As these foreigners, he's saying, I urge you. And now listen to this. Abstain. Abstain. What is it that the world imbibes in? What is it the world partakes in? What is it that you partake in? You partake in this. You partake in the singing. My national anthem isn't the national anthem that I used to sing when I was a little boy. The flag that I paid homage to, that I went to war and fought for, is not the flag that I'm under today. In the same way, your songs are different. Your allegiance is different. Abstain from the passions of the flesh that wage war against your soul. Abstain. if you get nothing out of this lesson, if you can just get this one verse, you've got so much. Abstain, because you are foreigners, because you are exiles. Abstain from the passions of the flesh that wage war. How strong is this? This is a middle tense. This is not something a preacher can preach at you. It's not something you can turn to your neighbor and judge them for. It's something that you have to do for yourself. And it's incredibly hard. Wage war. The root word there is the word army. There's an army coming up against you. It's not easy. I have a good friend, my brother and I know him really well. He graduated high school with me. His name is John Cooper. Not too long ago, John Cooper was a very fit young man. He was playing hockey with us, grass hockey. And he was one of those that got so good he could play. He might even have played on a national team. But he got a diagnosis. And the diagnosis was lung cancer. It wasn't nice. Can you go to the next slide for me? I say my mic's going out on me. Is that better? Oh, sorry. Is that okay? Let's just use this one. Is that okay? All right, we'll just stand over here. That's fine. That's John Cooper over there. You notice anything about John Cooper? He's fit. There he is, right over there, the top left-hand corner. Young. This was under 15. He grew about 4 inches just in a year, just after that photo was taken. He was one of the taller kids in high school. And just a few years later, he was playing hockey again with some of his friends that were with him. And my brother and I can probably identify 90% of everybody in that photo. But John Cooper got a diagnosis with lung cancer. The day he got that diagnosis, he stopped smoking. I'm sure looking at the pictures, at the work that he had, at his beautiful family, that he tried many, many, many times. You see, each one of us has a struggle that we struggle with. That was his struggle. But come down to the struggles that we're talking about. Look at chapter 2, verse 1, and see the social sins that are there. Look at this one here and see that there's a lust and there's adultery and there's all kinds of struggles that we have. And he's saying that we should win this battle. And it's not easy. No one is saying it is easy. It is war. And with that, I want you to now go to the next verse, and I want you to look at the public behavior, my public behavior. And so in verse 12 it says, keeping your conduct among the Gentiles honorable. When it says the word, in your English word, it just says keep, but it's actually a participle, and so it links back. It's keeping. For what you've done in the previous verse, I want you to bring it into the next verse. And then he says your conduct, and the word conduct there is like a general that is a strategist. And the root word there is strategist. So when you get up, if you're going to win this battle, you're going to have a battle plan every morning. We used to have battle plans in the military, and what we'd do is we'd get some sand and we'd draw the battle plan out on the sand. We'd say, there's the enemy, and this is what we're going to do, and there the mines will be there, and this will be the other force coming in there. And then when we finished, we'd wipe it out. But we never went in to the day without a battle plan. Every single day we knew exactly what we were going to do. And so here he's telling us this when it comes to our public behavior, specifically, first of all, towards our non-church neighbors. They are watching our conduct. And so you keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable or good or praiseworthy. And this is the reason, so that when they slander you, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they're going to say that you as Christians are actually evil. Because you see, you're not doing what they are doing. You're not praying to the cultic gods who will bring fertility and bring the land and bring a good crop. No, you are going to be different. And so as evildoers or workers of evil, they may see, and this is a seeing again, it's also a preposition, it's a causal effect, when they see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation. There's going to come a day, and by the way, this word visitation is overseer. Our elders are also shepherds, and they're also overseers, and they see over the flock. There's going to come a day
when Jesus is going to look down from heaven and he's going to see everything. Now, you may ask yourself, is this speaking about judgment or is this speaking about salvation? Right, Jacoby? What does it mean, those last words, when it talks about this? It's talking about both. It's talking about people who will see our behavior and they will change and become Christians, and it'll be people who don't change, and on the day of visitation, they will be judged. And it is not easy. A few weeks ago, we had a couple that were baptized in this congregation, April and Kevin Henn. What you may not know is that before they came to this congregation, their son came for 2 weeks, right, Brad? And what were they doing at home? They were watching our services online. They were looking at what type of people we were. Not too long ago, actually this weekend, we had a lot of baptisms. And again, these people were influenced by our behavior, by what they saw. When they saw that the things looked good, they said, you know what? We think we want to become part of this congregation. Not too long ago, Zaida was here, right? And she filled out a card. And she was an immigrant. She was from a different country. She's a foreign, not even an immigrant. And she said, I see the behavior in this congregation, and I want to become a Christian. And so people see what you're doing. They're always watching. These are visible signs, but you hardly ever get the visible signs. But how about when it comes to our government? Let's go on to the next verse, and let's look from verse 13. And if you have your Bibles open, the first word you can maybe underline, because it says, be subject. And that word, be subject, is an imperative. And again, what I'm reading might be a little bit different because I'm translating it from the original text here. Be subject for the Lord's sake to every human institution. And in the original, it doesn't say human institution. It just says to every human created creature that has authority over you. Be subject to that person. Whether it be to the emperor as supreme or to the governor as sent by him. And there again is a passive tense, which is the elected governor is not elected by popular vote, but God actually puts that person in place there. And that is for God's purposes. To punish those who do evil and to praise those who do good. Even the worst government in the world is there so that people can live a better life, so that people can be more responsible. And so if you look at your life, look at your private life, look at your public life right now, does it conform to the way Christians should be? I remember being friends of a man in a city many thousands of miles away from here, and he was a sheriff. And he said to me, Neville, there's a reason why I'm not a Christian. I see who comes out of whose homes at 4 o'clock in the morning. He says, I don't want to be part of this. So I challenged him. I said, that might be so. But how about the members that attend the Church of Christ? Pay attention to them and let's talk again. Well, now, I don't know if he's a Christian yet, but I know that he attends the Church of Christ whenever he can. And that's what I think we need to do. I think there's public people looking, there's neighbors looking, but there's even people in government that are looking at us. Verse 15 is very hard to determine because you either have to look at it retroactive or proactive, or prospective, sorry. And I believe that verse 15 should be looked at prospective. In other words, retrospective. Look at it back because it links to verse 13. So verse 15 says, for this, or literally, because this is the will of God, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance and the foolishness of people. Dan, have you ever spoken to somebody that was foolish, that had no knowledge? I remember Dan talking to me about trying to speak to somebody in Frisch's recently, and this guy didn't want to have anything to do with the Bible, and how frustrating it was because he couldn't get through to this person. And so when we look at the people of the world, and sometimes that is what we come up against. And so we have to be careful with what we do towards our government. In the winter of 2009, there was a pilot, Chesley Sullenberger, who landed his aeroplane in the Hudson River in New York. And everybody was surprised at how he could do that. And this is what he said. One way of looking at this might be that for 42 years I've been making small deposits in the bank of experience, education, and training. And on that day, the balance was sufficient so that I could make a very large withdrawal. Your Christian living and the way you behave here and the way you absorb the things that you learn and then live them in your life, it says that you are not acting without foolishness. What would happen if somebody had to break into your house tonight? How you treat that person could either mean that you would be a hero or you could end up being in jail. What about if somebody comes up behind you and almost rear-ends you and then drives past you and slams on their brakes and causes road rage in you? How do you behave at that point? You see, it's how we assimilate in our private life that's going to flow out into our public life and affect not only our neighbors, but also the governmental officials will see this and say, these people are good because of their good conduct. Well, finally, we get to our behavior as a congregation. And if you look at point number 3, you'll see what it says there. It says, submit as people. And again, I put the word submit in parentheses because I believe it's pointing back to verse 13. And you will be surprised to know the word live is not in the Greek text. What has happened is the ESV and the NIV has substituted that word in there. But the context should tell us whether it's now in the future or whether it's backing up in the context. And I believe this is backing up in the context. And so I've taken the word, because there is no verb, I've taken the word from verse 13, submit, as the one I prefer instead of the word live. And so it says, submit as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cloak or as a cover-up for evil. But submit, again, not the word living, but submit as servants of God. And the word servant there is not diakonos, which would be servant. It's the word doulos, which is slaves. As slaves of God, submit. You are a people who are free. You are free to do anything you want to, but do not use your freedom as a cloak for evil. I had a secretary in Texas who was really, really upset when I first got to know her, because the district attorney one day got very drunk, and he was known to get very drunk, and he almost killed my secretary's 19-year-old daughter. He used his cloak for freedom, as it were, for evil. Well, she was so persistent, he eventually got fired. But how many of us as Christians are using our cloak of doing good as actually for evil? And so he's saying to us, don't do this. And finally, in verse 17, he says, honor everyone. And this honor everyone is in the aorist, which means it's punctilian action. It's a fact. So he'll begin with this, honor everyone, but then he'll go into the present tense. He'll say, honor everyone. Love the brotherhood. Fear God. Honor the emperor. And you honor the emperor as supreme. In this case, the emperor in our country would be President Obama. It would ever be whoever is the chief person in charge of our country. And it's saying, because you have this attitude towards everyone, it's settled, we do it. We're not going to question it. I remember yesterday I was driving and somebody came right behind me in a pickup, and then he drove past me, and then he showed me a sign, in his rearview mirror. But he was pointing towards his little mirror, and I saw him in his little mirror. I didn't see him in his rearview mirror. And Dwayne and I got to looking around what was happening, and we realized that the little cover of where you plug in my vault was open. And he was showing that. And my attitude towards submitting to that person, that point, is what drove us to figure out what was going on. Can you do that? Can you live this kind of life? Can you be this kind of person in your private life? Can you be the kind of person that will take your private life, as I said there when we did that point, knowing whose you are, in other words, beloved, knowing who you are, sojourners and exiles, should cause us to distance ourselves from temptation or abstain from the flesh, because we see this as an all-out wage against the soul. Can you do that privately? When it comes to your neighbors, can you live in such a way that they say, I wonder where those people attend church? I'm curious about that. I want to become part of whatever. I want to have what they have. I see something in them that is infectious. It is calling out to me, albeit softly, albeit tenderly, but it's calling out to me. And therefore, in our public lives, can we also do that? And will that affect us as a church? Again, it says, submit or live as people who are free. It's not talking individually now. It's talking as a church. There's a man who wrote a book many years ago called The Gift of the Magi. His name was O. Henry. And he talked about this couple whose name was Jim and Dealer. And Jim and Dealer loved each other so much, but they were young, married. They did not have much money. And so they saved up for a Christmas present for each other. Well, Jim looked at his wife and said, she has such beautiful long hair. She's always trying to tuck it up. And I found these really nice hairpins, but I can't afford them. And then he realized he has this beautiful gold watch, his prized possession. And if he would sell this gold watch, he could buy these hairpins. And she could pin up her hair. And it would be the perfect Christmas present. Well, she went out to look for a present for him. And she said, Jim has got this beautiful gold watch, but he has nothing to attach it with. He has no chain. So I'll buy him this expensive gold chain, but I'm lacking some money. So I will sell my hair, and I will get enough money so that he can have a gold chain. And there they come, Christmas Day, and they exchange their gifts, and they realize just how much they love each other. That's the story of Christians, right? We submit, we give, we don't seek back in return. And then when God opens the floodgates of heaven and blesses us beyond measure, we say, what's happening? We don't deserve this. And it's true. And so today God calls you softly and tenderly. If you've got a private battle that you're waging a war against, see it for what it is. Your soul is at stake. And not just your soul, but your neighbor's souls are at stake. If you followed somebody to this building today because of the life that you see in them, please consider listening to the voice of Jesus by coming forward to be baptized right now as together we stand and sing.